Good morning, Scott Stearns, incident meteorologist here on the southern zone of the Calf Canyon and Hermit's Peak fires. So today we're going to kind of take a quick look at what happened over the weekend and into Monday as well. First of all, we'll start with yesterday. Here on the left, we have a graphic that shows the amount of precipitation across the fire area. It's fairly variable, actually, no big, huge patterns that I can show, but generally speaking, we had around 1/4 of an inch to some places saw up to maybe a 1/2 inch, and some localized areas just above a 1/2 an inch of precipitation yesterday. Nothing really fast, as most of you out there know. It was pretty slow precipitation rates, which is great because the last thing we need at this point is fast precip, intense precip out of thunderstorms that would lead to potential flooding issues. So did not have that yesterday, thankfully. If we look at the 3-day totals, generally down to about 1.5 inches on the southeastern side of the fire, kind of the northeastern side of the fire, pretty similar. But up to right around 4 inches. You know, there's some localized areas, peaks and such, high terrain that may have been above that. So maybe approaching 5 inches or so of liquid over the last 3 days. But looking into the future, we'll go to the next slide here. And so this is a little bit hard to see because I captured this pretty early this morning. But essentially, we're looking at that visible satellite imagery. So it's just a snapshot from satellites looking down what you'd see if you were to take a picture with a camera up there. And then overlaid on that, we also have infrared imagery. So that gives us some kind of an idea here in the kind of the bluish to greenish to yellowish area that, you know, how cold those cloud tops are and that type of thing tells us something about how strong the storms are. So really, long story short here across New Mexico is that in our area we have very little cloud cover at this time. There's a little bit of low-level cloud cover just off to our northeast, but not impacting the fire area. In terms of thunderstorm activity, we see a little bit down to the southeast of here, around 50 to 100 miles or so. Shouldn't be a factor for us today in terms of the fire area. So next, we see this. So this is water vapor imagery. It gives us kind of a snapshot of the amount of moisture in the air. As I was mentioning yesterday, and has probably been mentioned before that, we were expecting high pressure to build in across the intermountain western U.S., and that is going to bring a little bit drier air that nudge to the south and east, and you can see that here. We do have a little bit of increased lingering moisture that's starting to dissipate, and as well as move to the southeast, and we saw that in the cloud cover to our northeast. But again, moisture is certainly decreasing over the fire area and really pushing south across the state of New Mexico today. So just thought I'd show this. I think this has been shown in the past. It's probably been a while, but we call this the hot, dry, and windy index, and essentially it gives us one number that combines the dryness. So when we talk about dryness, we're talking about the temperature outside and also the humidity. So the higher the temperature, the lower the humidity, the higher that dryness that goes into this. But this also combines that dryness with wind speed. And so long story short, the higher the numbers on here, the more concerning fire weather is in terms of how it can lead to increased fire activity. Obviously don't have any fire activity out there right now, but I just wanted to kind of highlight that we've been much below normal. If you want to call this kind of line right in here is near normal conditions, the median. So about half the days in history have been above that, half the days below that. We're way down here at the bottom. So not a concern in terms of fire weather. Hasn't been for the last week or two here. And in addition to that, you see these really low dips near zero. That's when we had precipitation and low-level cloud cover, very little sunlight, that kind of thing. So really the last couple days, maybe even the last 3 days have been real low. We had that dip about a week ago or so as well with a little bit of precipitation. So as we look into the future, just real quick at this number, we are on the increase just ever so slightly, but still remaining low into the future. We really don't see much potential until maybe about 5 days into the future to even attempt to increase a little bit, and even at that, it's still below the quote-unquote normal value where we typically are. So not really anything too concerning in terms of fire weather, and we can go to the next slide. So just to kind of recap, today we are looking at still moisture in the air, so we still have around 40 to 50% cloud cover out there anticipated. Not a whole lot in the sky at this moment, but that'll be increasing this afternoon as we kind of heat up during the day, develop some of those clouds. In terms of humidity, expecting pretty low humidity values, lower than what we have, I should say lower than what we have seen. But really not too concerning in terms of, drying things out quickly or anything of that nature. Matter of fact, I really think over the next week or so it's going to be tricky, even if we do get the drying that's forecasted, for crews to be able to do a whole lot of real groundwork out there, simply because the soils remain saturated, and we're not going to dry that out real quick, real efficiently. And part of that as well is due to these low wind speeds. So the higher the wind speed with higher temperatures and lower RHs, the faster we are at drying the soils out, and that's just not what we're going to see over the next few days. We're moving in the right direction in terms of a little bit drier than what we have been, obviously, but nothing like we saw a month ago on this incident. So we are still carrying that chance of lightning today. Showers of any appreciable amount of precipitation, so about 1/10 of an inch or more. We've only got about a 20 or 30% chance of that across the fire area today. So nothing really exciting in terms of that activity. But if we do happen to get a thunderstorm in the wrong spot, so to speak, we could still potentially be looking at really low probability, but some potential for flooding in the fire off the burn scar. So just real quickly as we go into the rest of the days here, Wednesday is kind of the driest day, it looks like. Then we warm up just a little bit further for Thursday, but we start to bring precip back in the atmosphere. And then Friday is kind of, we make that jump back into much better chances for precipitation over the fire area. And that kind of continues through the weekend, it'll look like. So that'll be it from here. Thank you.